Welcome one and all to a very special episode of Superhero Stuff You Should Know. This is Sherlock Ben, and with me is...
Andrew by Just Gas. Thank you, everybody. That's my name.
What type of gas?
Fart.
That's what I thought. Okay.
What, methane, I don't know.
And with us, joining us once again, it's been a while, it's Jake from the BatFeed. Welcome back, Jake.
How's it going, everybody?
So,
thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us this here episode, Jake
Indeed.
Worth.
I was just telling Andrew, too, I think this is going to be more appropriate for you and your audience. Since last time we talked about, the Unmade Batfleck movie with Deathstroke, but a lot of what you've done on the BatFeed has to do with, the different ways of putting Batman in a different period of time, including 1889 with, the Gotham by Gaslight type of universe. So I thought you were the perfect person to kind of bring on as a other, consultant, other authority on this universe, since we've been sort of been requested to cover this in the past by different fans. So thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me again.
Yep. So this comes from one of our $10 tier members, Halsey, who asked for this with the news. I'll just read it off. It says, I don't know what is more surprising, that they are bringing back my favorite Elseworld in Gotham by Gaslight after all these years. Yes, they've announced that there's going to be a new installment for that Elseworld called the Kryptonian Age, which we can talk about a little later. He wasn't sure whether to be surprised by that or the fact that AOL.com still exists, is where he got the source of this information.
My dad still uses his AOL account.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I know.
Mind blown in two directions. If there's enough material, please do a Gotham by Gaslight universe deep dive. That was initially the whole reason to share the information with you, but then I got distracted by AOL still existing. So here we are.
Magnifique. Magnifique, Halsey. Love the. He's a local not local. He comments often, and he's part of the $10 tier and all that. So
Gotcha.
we know him more or less well at this point.
Yes, and often wins.
I got a few of those on my channel too.
Yeah, we kind of been starting to do a thing where Patreon patrons get to win the comment of the week, and he's often a champion of that. So
they just win the prestige, though. There's no prize yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
This also comes from one of our other fans, big fan Sparkyhead, and asked a year ago. We got to it. Don't say that I can never get back to you guys. But say, can y'all do a deep dive on Batman Gotham by Gaslight? I realize y'all haven't covered that, and the same Batman costume Robert Pattinson's wearing is in this film also, which he's not wrong in some ways, right? Maybe not from the neck down, but in terms of the collar and the stitched-in cowl, it's kind of tough to argue that there wasn't at least some influence, not to mention that Gotham by Gaslight is a very detective-focused comic story.
Yeah.
So do you feel like that was an influence, Jake?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, like when I first saw I think the first release that Matt Reeves did of the Pattinson costume, my initial reaction was, wow, that looks like shit. To be completely honest. But then the better looks that we got at it, I was like, okay, there's some nods to the Capullo style bat cowl. The stitching is very obviously a nod to Gotham by Gaslight. I think it's become one of my favorites over time, and especially after staring at it for however long that movie is, 2.5 hours. You get used to it. So
it went from complete shit to you really liking it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Okay. You just had a knee-jerk reaction.
Well, were you reacting to those set photos? Because those set photos were not very flattering.
No, they weren't. I think it was a combination of that and the picture. Because I'm trying to remember if it was Pattinson or his stunt double that was in the costume, where some of his sideburn was visible past the cowl. And I was like, that's I don't know.
It's a choice.
At least in my mind, that's the equivalent of the modern day equivalent of if Gotham by Gaslight Batman had a mustache poking out under his cowl or something. It just looked a little off to me at first, and then
just spend $10,000 on VFX cleanup.
Yeah,
and then that sideburn's gone.
It's very clearly works to shave off facial hair, as we've seen in these superhero movies. So Before we go into Gotham by Gaslight, I thought I'd give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the BatFeed for those who aren't familiar with it. Dan, our research assistant, pulled up this visual of your Gotham 1889 season 1 full movie. So Halsey, if you want another deep dive into that, this movie is from what I'm looking at here, 2.5 hours. Yeah, 2 hours and 40 minutes actually collectively of all your different videos on the Gotham by Gaslight stuff. So kind of go into like what is this movie?
Yeah, so for an overview, it's basically, if you guys have seen the Gotham by Gaslight animated movie and also read the comic, I probably should have flipped the order on that because one came before the other. But
Okay.
the kind of the goal here was to do something in the same vein as the 1920s series that I have going. So to kind of give an overview of the channel, I started off back during the pandemic was when it really took off. And I was just doing all sorts of stuff. And then I found this book, Gotham 1919 to 1939 by Giant Panda King, small company in Australia. And they were gracious enough to let me do a book review in documentary format, basically. And the views just took off. And I think I went from 200 subscribers to 1,000 over the course of a couple weeks.
Damn.
And it's just taken off from there.
It's like a video essay kind of thing.
Yeah, video essay. Kind of in a Ken Burns style, like a lot more like still life and zooming in and zooming out and moving it all over the place. And it's evolved into much more than that, like finding historically accurate footage from those time periods to tie in and make it more of a movie experience in mockumentary style. But
what do you used to edit? Premiere?
Final Cut Pro.
Final Cut Pro. Are you still on that? Oh,
yeah,
man.
still on that.
They haven't updated that in years.
At this point, I'm too afraid to learn anything else.
Premiere is the closest thing to Final Cut. Premiere kind of took over the reins of Final Cut Pro. But you know what? Parasite was edited on a goddamn old-ass Final Cut. You know, the Korean film that won Best Picture?
Wow.
They edited it on Final Cut, actually. Anyway, back to the main story.
Yeah, so basically, so we've been doing those. We do like short form videos, and then once the season is over with, we combine it into one of these compilations in like a full length documentary style video. This one, my overall goal for season 1 of Gotham 1889 was to combine the best parts of the animated movie and the comic, because, and I don't know how much of your fan base leans whatever direction. The animated movie, the twist at the end kind of sucked.
We'll go into that.
Yeah, but I still managed to take elements of that, and you've got some interesting tie-ins in my documentary, because something they don't go into in the comic book or the animated movie is, like, say for instance, the time frame that Thomas Wayne would have been born in here. And the background where his medical experience would have come from, it's very likely that he would have fought possibly in the Civil War or served as like a field medic and gained a lot of experience there, which I think, I can't remember for sure, but I think I had him and Jim Gordon serving in the same unit, which is why Jim Gordon then is, like, he knows Bruce when Bruce comes back to Gotham in the comic book, kind of ties those threads together. And includes like real-time history from our world, you know.
Nice.
So little things like that, but it's basically like, if you've read the comic book, it's what it boils down to is a uber long Batman versus Jack the Ripper.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, definitely check that out. After this, we'll include the link in the description and in the video and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, this is why I thought this would be great to bring you back on, because of the fact that I know that you have a lot of love for this comic. This is probably ranked as one of the best Elseworlds as well, because of such a cool concept, you know, like put Batman in the era of Sherlock Holmes, give him his own sort of Sherlock Holmes type of story. So let's go into kind of this universe where it started off, and, you know, different information. We can go a little bit more into the movie and the twist that I know people didn't like, but let's go into it. So, 1989 is where we first got this comic, A Tale of the Batman, Gotham by Gaslight. Writers from the late Brian Augustyn. He passed sometime last year. rest in peace. Artist Mike Mignola, inks P. Craig Russell, colors by David Hornung, and letters by John Workman. It's a very short comic too.
Mignola drew this. Okay, Hellboy.
I think it was pre Hellboy. I don't remember. Pretty sure
Hellboy came. 90s. Man, maybe even. Well, yeah, it must have been 90s.
Yeah, I'll look that up.
Just tell us in the comments.
Yeah.
We're not going to know everything mid-conversation. Sorry, internet.
So, Gotham by Gaslight. It is one where it does take place in Gotham because it is Gotham by Gaslight. The idea is that Jack the Ripper went from London over to Gotham. And since Scotland Yard couldn't find him in England, it's up to Batman, who has just arrived, who has just started out in Gotham City, to take him down. So Jack the Ripper is his first case in this universe. We'll go a little bit more into it, but just as an overview, there's this one, and then there's a sequel that's lesser known called Master of the Future, also from Brian Augustin. This one's more steampunkish. The first one's not really steampunk at all. It's more of just out-and-out Victorian era, even though it's in America, but like period piece. You're in the streets, you're in the fog of what seems like London, but it's Gotham, all that stuff. Here, it's a lot more steampunkish.
How many goggles are there?
Good point. Let me check real quick. I don't think he wears them.
Fuckload of goggles.
It's not actually a lot. It's more of just like, it's more of stuff like there's a dirigible, you know.
Okay.
There's like technology stuff that wouldn't normally be there, but you know that's kind of
what it is.
World, yeah. Mignola did not return for this one. The artist is Eduardo Barreto, and colors by Steve Oliff and letters by Willie Schubert. And then we go to 2018, where we got the Gotham by Gaslight movie, which when I reviewed, because I'm pretty sure I read the comic, like most people, I read the comic first before the movie, and I didn't realize the second time going on to both how little they would have in common at times, because I was like, okay, like there's certain beats that I thought that one that was in one was going to be in the other. And then when I went through it, I'm like, oh, it's really, we took the same story of Batman versus Jack the Ripper. And then the only thing that really carries over story-wise is that Bruce Wayne is a suspect of being the Ripper and goes into custody. And then that's pretty much it. Everything else is its own thing. The movie takes a lot more Batman universe characters and puts them into 1800s Gotham, which I think is probably one of the big inspirations from what it sounds like to you, Jake, with where you played around with the different Batman universe characters. So we have Selena Kyle was not a character at all in the comic, but she is in the movie, and she's a suffragette and really there for women's rights at that time, as well as also a fellow orphan taken in by Sister Leslie, who's a reimagining of Leslie Tompkins. So there's just a lot of different variations here between the two of them. The movie does kind of have some cool references here and there. You've got the Robins are now street urchins who kind of help them out. You've got a Johnny Gobbs reference from '89 in there. But overall, besides the twist, because I know you're not a big fan of that twist, what are your thoughts on the movie, Jake?
Overall, I think it really did, at least, from my standpoint with trying to piece the whole series together that I do, it did a lot more filling in the blanks for some of the characters. We still see some common threads, like obviously Jim Gordon being the big one, but I'm sure a lot of people, I think they did a reference to Poison Ivy as well in the movie. That
she's like the first victim of the Ripper.
Yeah. So that was just little things like that on top of getting a more in-depth view of what Arkham Asylum looks like and all sorts of things like that.
That too.
Yeah, and Hugo Strange. It was really cool to see those threads and like seeing where they would fit into that world. So overall, I think for the world building aspect, it was phenomenal for this Elseworlds world.
Yeah, I do like I'd say that's the best part too, is the ability for it to flesh stuff out, even if the story isn't quite, the same as the comic, especially when it comes to the identity of the Ripper in this, which we'll cover after the break to give people a chance to check it out if they haven't seen it. But There's a few things that I noticed from Master of the Future, the sequel, that are in the movie that wasn't in the original comic. So you've got Bruce taking down like a significantly bigger opponent when he's Bruce Wayne, not Batman. And you've got, a fight on a dirigible, like we were talking about earlier. The World's Fair. There's a little bit of that steampunk element in Gotham by Gaslight, the movie, that's not in the comics. That's taken from Master of the Future, not from the comic. And then the villain dies in a fire in both Master of the Future and the Gotham by Gaslight movie. So clearly they read the sequel too, not just the original book. But one of the things that I like the most, though, is that because we've covered, Andrew and I have talked a lot about like the different people who trained Bruce Wayne, and most of them are characters who are people that they made up to be his mentors over time. Sometimes it's cool where it's like Wildcat, where it's like it's an old school JSA character. But then when you bring this to Gotham by Gaslight, you can have historical figures train him, or fictional characters in this case. So in the comic, not in the movie, but in the comic, his last mentor is Sigmund Freud, learning about psychology. And Freud references, quote unquote, the London detective who taught him, who, of course, is meant to be Sherlock Holmes. It's meant to be that Sherlock Holmes trained Bruce Wayne to be a detective in this world, which I think is amazing, of course. And that's also referenced in the movie where he quotes Holmes's famous quote about when you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. And then the movie adds one more mentor that's not in the comic that I thought was cool, which is Houdini. He switches the handcuffs on Jack the Ripper and tells him that Houdini taught him that trick, which I thought was a cool thing. So like, arguably he's got cooler mentors, I think, than the main continuity Bruce Wayne, just because he has these historical figures or really famous characters in pop culture. So
I remember when he said that quote in the movie, I just about lost my shit. It was like, oh my God, he said the thing.
Are you a Holmes fan as well?
I am, yeah. I have also from, this was before we started recording, but I got the Sherlock Holmes hat and also the complete works of Sherlock Holmes when I went to visit 221B Baker Street in London. So...
yeah, they have a great setup there, where the actual 221B Baker Street is now a museum, for those who haven't seen it. A museum that's like a replica of what his place is in like the books. So it almost like it brings all that stuff to life. And then you've got a bunch of old wax figures of them at the very top or something. But that's not really the highlight as much. But it's more just the feeling of being in something like that, which was cool. But one thing I liked, so if we're going to talk about Gordon, one thing is the Gordon in the comic, not the movie, but in the comic, Gordon feels very much like he's meant to be Teddy Roosevelt. So we haven't really talked about Teddy Roosevelt on here, but
why would we?
Hero stuff you should know. But the connection here, though,
Calvin Coolidge.
The connection here is that Christopher Nolan compared his take on Bruce Wayne to Teddy Roosevelt when it came to the Dark Knight trilogy. So that's, obviously that was well after when this comic was made, but I thought that was sort of an interesting connection in terms of, having ambition, trying to clean up a city, because Teddy Roosevelt was a police commissioner of New York before he was the president. So I can see that connection. Even as a kid, when I learned about that and saw that this was a dude with a mustache and glasses, I'm just like, well, clearly he was the real life Commissioner Gordon at that point. So I thought that was a kind of a cool aspect. Obviously, the Gordon in the comic is a lot different from the version in the movie, but I appreciated this artistic choice, of course.
Yeah, quick note on that too. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the show The Alienist with Daniel Bruhl and Luke Evans and those guys.
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
The first season, actually, you get to see a younger Teddy Roosevelt as the police commissioner. They kept calling him Teddy, and I was like, wait a second. And I looked into it, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah. He's gone by the second season, because by then he's moved on to bigger and better things. But it was cool to see that, and it kind of did make me think of Gordon a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's one of those connections still that... or one of the things that I think is always cool about putting this in history, even though, like, I'm on record, I'm not a huge Elseworlds guy, but I do like it when it's sort of historical type of stuff, when they change this type of stuff around. So this aspect I appreciate of this. There's let's see. Also, other parts of this world is I didn't ask Dan to pull it up, but I should have. Harvey Dent looks like Abe Lincoln. In this world, he's got that sort of beard that's not really a beard thing going on, and it's kind of maybe it's disappointing, maybe it's not. I don't know how you feel about it, Jake, in terms of like they just did not carry over that design at all in the movie. He just has a mustache and that's it.
Yeah. I kind of, I definitely went more with the movie version and my series, just because it felt more like the Harvey Dent that people knew and loved.
Yeah,
because you only get to see him for I think that one panel in the comic.
Yeah, there's not much to him in it. He's an actual character in the movie, and they're clearly trying to like make him seem like he's the Ripper. In the movie, he's like the red herring of that. So, but let's see. Also, one thing that I didn't care for in the movie, at least maybe I'm wrong on this, but in the comic, it's clear the Ripper committed all these crimes in London. All that stuff actually happened, and he's coming over to Gotham. The movie doesn't seem to show at all that Jack the Ripper was ever in London. It doesn't acknowledge any of the history, from what I remember. I think it was just like this guy's in Gotham killing people. They never really say that he had a history anywhere else in like Whitechapel.
Right. That's kind of one of the big bummers of that whole plot twist too. I think for me was that the person that it ends up being, it doesn't make any sense from the rest of the historical standpoint, because it's such a big deal that Batman's fighting Jack the Ripper, but if you take away the actual history that makes Jack the Ripper such a big deal, it kind of loses some of the gravitas, I guess.
Do you have your own theory in terms of who the Ripper could have been?
In the Gotham by Gaslight movie?
Well, I mean, in real life.
Oh, in real life? I know, man, I've looked at the suspect list that they did have a number of times, and I will say the exact names escape me. I know there was one individual that they thought it could have been. I'm kind of curious now. Hang on. I feel like it was one.
Some of it goes all the way up to like the Crown, you know.
Right.
One of the. There's a reference in the comic to the Duke of Clarence visiting Gotham, and that's a reference to like one of the suspects. People thought that like he was Jack the Ripper. And then if you've seen or read From Hell, there's that theory as well that's connected to, you know, the royal family, which in itself really came from what feels like a Sherlock Holmes movie, which in itself took it from a Jack the Ripper thing. Like everybody's taking from something, but like I think to when I was on a Ripper kick, I watched.
Ripper kick.
I was on a Ripper. Yeah, that's what I do. No, if everyone's into true crime, I'm like, dude, this was like the original true crime thing that people were into. But yeah, I remember it was like an audio drama of Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper, and then it was From Hell, and then it was the Sherlock Holmes movie Murder by Decree, and all three of them had like the same exact like identity of who it was. And I'm like, okay, I know exactly what's going on here because I've seen it. They all have scenes of visiting the insane asylum where that poor woman's kept. Like they all had the same beats. So I thought it was weird because I didn't realize that there was that much crossover. I just thought there would be different killers in each one.
Yeah, one of the things that I was just looking at the article again. They had such a wide net of suspects because Victorian England was like their record keeping wasn't all that great.
Well, sure.
So it was they suspected anyone from like street level people to and this was a fun little nod to Alice in Wonderland, and even the Mad Hatter and Batman was one of the suspects was even Lewis Carroll.
Oh yeah, I think I heard about that.
So that's the name I was thinking of. I just couldn't remember. I was like, it's a famous person. Somebody thought it was a famous person, but
that would be wild though.
Yeah.
Have you looked into? I know that Jack the Ripper stuff. Well, I know that you like the true crime stuff that's in last podcast on the left, Andrew. But have you had a chance to look into much Ripper stuff yourself?
There's a Jack the Ripper episode of last podcast on the left, and I've listened to it, but I have forgotten nearly every single beat of it. I don't know, man. I've listened. I know the major stuff, I guess, but
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. It's been probably a couple years since I listened to that episode, so that's about it. Like, I haven't really watched or read anything else about Jack the Ripper. Well, From Hell is about him.
Yeah.
I saw that in the theater. Really liked it. I forgot it was about Jack the Ripper, dude. It's been so long, man. You know, some people like they see a movie once, like 20 fucking years ago, and they remember every single goddamn frame. That's not me. I'll forget a movie I saw a month ago. I'm just not like that. That's not how my fandom works. That's not how my brain works. Yeah, it's all. I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, it's not something that I like spend a ton of time looking into, but because of, like, there are 2 Sherlock Holmes movies, and then there's at least a dozen different books that like fictionalize what could have happened if Holmes was on the case, sort of thing. That kind of like got me into it as a kid, just wondering like, okay, what really happened, and the fact that nobody actually caught who it was always something that's intrigued people to this day when it comes to that. But it is kind of a case too where it's like, well, this also happened like, centuries ago at this point, so over a century ago. So it's like there's like, what can you do once you find out who it is, right? Like, there's only so much evidence out there and stuff.
It's a hell of a cold case if somebody does solve it at this point.
Yeah. I know, right? It'd be especially impressive considering how like little evidence would be left. But still, like, I'd be curious to hear like what other people's theories are in the comments section, just to see, because sometimes it's just interesting to see. So let us know on that. But yeah, I guess I'd give people an opportunity to check out the comic or the movie before coming back, because we will go into why people think the twist sucked in the movie and why they changed Jack the Ripper. So we'll catch you guys after the break. All right, everyone, we have November announcements, and since he was part of the episode we're recording, Tim Maxwell is here from Nuverse Creative. So Tim and I have a few collaborations that I want to tell you guys about, some of which you may have already heard. These were definitely produced very quickly to the point where I didn't have anything in last month's announcements for these, so I'm making up for that this month. So we have 3 to talk about. One is Batman Forever, Night of the Reaper, and that is an adaptation of the Dennis O'Neil, Neil Adams story, but set in the world of Batman Forever, which has been really cool. So anything else to add on that, Tim?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm a huge fan, or I think the whole Val Kilmer Batman and even George Clooney, it's very nostalgic for me, and I think for a lot of people. And so I think it's cool that you've written a story and put it in that world, and we could just imagine a little bit more of the stories and what could have happened, with Val Kilmer's Batman.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe we'll dive more into it in the future. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
This one is Batman 89, A Vow from the Grave, another adaptation of the 1970s story, but this time for Keaton's Batman. As you can see from the thumbnail that Tim did, this is the blue and gray suit that you see in the vault in The Flash. And if you're a believer that the Batman in The Flash is different from the Burton Batman, then you can use this as an explanation for the Iron Winch suit in the Kenner toys. So it's up to you on that. But I did think it would be cool to have different audios that cover each of the suits. So the original first appearance suit we did with Case of the Chemical Syndicate. This one, Vow from the Grave, considering that suit looks very much like the Neil Adams style Batman suit. So, anything else on this one?
Yeah, I was gonna say I had a comment recently where I think someone made the request that we make a story or an audio drama or audio story for each of the suits that Keaton has in that vault, which I think would be pretty neat. Which was actually something I remember when I was a kid and getting all the different action figures. It didn't make sense to me that those suits weren't in the movie. And I remember thinking, I don't remember seeing him in a yellow suit. Like I love the toy, but I don't remember this from the movie. And so I think fast forward to now, it's cool that we can either come up with stories or use stories to put in that world that would validate or give a reason for that suit. And so I think that's fascinating. Yeah.
That is a good point too. There's not just because like after this one, those are the first two suits, and then obviously you got the '89 Return suit and the one from the Flash, and then there's kind of just two left that are in that vault. But then there's all the Keter variations. So there's a lot. There's a lot of possible stories here.
Yeah, it's endless. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next one is set in the Dark Knight universe. This is The Dark Knight Fears. This is an adaptation of the Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale story from the Haunted Knight collection, where Christian Bale's Batman in this one is fighting, he's in a rematch with Cillian Murphy's Scarecrow, set during the Halloween, that happens after or in between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. So really, really enjoyed working on this one as well. I mean, I liked working on all of these, but this was one where it was kind of fun to... I mean, it's my first one writing in that world, because I've written a bunch of the Keaton ones. That some of the, the Nolan style is actually very fun to try to write or try to capture, and the way that the different Bruces talk. I'll talk about this in the episode. It becomes a little bit more apparent when you have to do something like this, where each Batman is narrating each story. It's been really fun.
Yeah, and huge props and thanks to you for writing these. I think they're fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll have a lot more to come. But those are the three that will have been announced or will have been released by the time that this episode comes out. All right, over to Andrew.
Woo! All right, everybody check out Gaming Gaiden. That's my other podcast. It's about video games. Gaiden is spelled Gaiden. Gaming Gaiden. We're on YouTube and on your favorite podcast listening app. And it's a lot of like retro gaming, 90s gaming, and also Japanese translation of video games and that whole world. So, and also if you grew up reading Electronic Gaming Monthly magazine, there's stuff for you in there as well. And yeah, Gaming Gaiden, check it out. Probably best on YouTube, but it's good anywhere. Gotcha. And moving on to the next one, Metal Force. So go to www.metalforce.ninja. That's the website for the project that I'm doing now, and it's basically R-rated Power Rangers meets Stranger Things, and it's like a bloody horror movie that I'm working on. And we just finished our Kickstarter, but I'm announcing now that we're going to run a Seed and Spark crowdfunding page again, because the Kickstarter was run during the strike and not many people could do it, etc., etc. So first month or two in 2024, we'll run a Seed and Spark for people that couldn't make it then. And then we'll get to shooting after that. So, please check out metalforce.ninja for all the details.
Nice. And then, finally, last but certainly not least, in fact, probably the most important, is our monthly charity promotion. And this is for the month of November is the month of Thanksgiving. And it's known for having plenty of food, but unfortunately not everybody in the world gets to experience that. So, for that, we are promoting No Kid Hungry, which is a way for you to donate and support the work in food banks, schools, and other places where children can be provided with food and meals and not go hungry, as the title says. So go to nokidhungry.org, donate there. Again, these charity drives, we don't get anything out of them. We just randomly pick them because we think if you're a fan of superheroes, you should also be a fan of helping others.
Yes, that's part of the whole vibe here. So, yeah, that's awesome, Ben. I actually wasn't aware till we got to usually we discuss, but no problem. This is an awesome pick. I do love this. It's perfect for Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, please go to nokidhungry.org.
And with that, those are the announcements. Thanks, everyone.
Well, you catch more flies with honey. Hoo. If you like catching flies, that is, you stupid fuck.
All right, we're back with Jake the Ripper, as he's changed his name. So I guess we found the culprit for this week's, but problem solved. But yeah, we going to go into spoilers now in terms of Jack the Ripper's identity in these universes, not in real life, obviously, because we don't know, or do we? But let's go into it. So we have two different versions of this because the movie decided to change it. And I guess this was around the same time that the Hush movie came out and also decided to change who Hush was. They were just on a kick of just like, all right, let's just not go for the comic version and
take a
try to
dump on
make
the
it
fan
someone else.
base.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that one.
So in the comics, there is it's a very well thought of explanation where it is somebody who's connected to the Wayne family, a man named Jacob Packer, who is a family friend and was also in love with Martha Wayne. And when he basically got rejected, he's partially responsible for the murders of the Waynes, as well as killing the women in Whitechapel because the women remind him of Martha. So this roots Jack the Ripper's killings in the Wayne family, not because the Waynes were doing anything, but because the Martha Wayne's rejection of him led him to do all this stuff. And obviously, he's deranged. So it's an interesting idea, and also carries over what we were talking about earlier, where the Jack the Ripper in the comic actually did commit all the crimes in Whitechapel that happened historically. Obviously, in this version, he is actually caught when he crosses over in America by the Batman. But that's how they thought it out. In the movie, it's Jim Gordon because
Lame.
he's I guess a religious fanatic who cut people up during the war. I rewatched it like a week ago or so, so I'm still hazy on the details, probably because I partially blocked it out. But I think part of it was, hey, like, it's a bigger twist if you make it the guy you least expect, if he's like the main ally to Batman. And I'm like, I get that, but the explanation was just kind of like, well, guess what? Gordon's crazy, and Batman's going to fight Gordon in this. That's pretty much what I got out of it. What was your reaction, Jake?
They definitely were just going more for shock factor at that point, because I don't even know the exact reason. We'll just settle for because. But yeah, and this is the funny thing to me too, is you mentioned the religious fanatic thing. It's almost like they were like, okay, let's take one of the Irish characters and really lean into the Irish Catholic side of things, but also make him deranged because of the war, I guess, ? And yeah, it was a bit of a stretch, to say the least.
But it's clear from the movie too that we don't have a Jacob Packer at all in this, so it's obviously not him.
Yeah.
And then they made Harvey Dent such a like obvious red herring that you're like, okay, well, it's clearly not him either. So
yeah,
it did kind of work out the way it did, but still, I know a lot of people don't like it, and I just don't understand the DC animated, movies ideas that just kind of change the twist. It'd be like if they did Under the Red Hood, but then Red Hood wasn't Jason Todd. I'd be like, what are we doing?
It was actually just Clayface or something.
Yeah, Clayface the whole time.
Yeah,
Jason's still dead.
It was me.
Yeah, the one exception I think to the animated movie adaptations was the Court of Owls one that they did. I think it was Batman versus Robin, maybe.
Yeah.
I really liked that storyline as a standalone adaptation. Because it took a lot of different things, but kind of made something new. I think they went too far with a few of their like Elseworlds adaptations that they did, or even just the like Hush, for instance.
Have they done just a straight Court of Owls?
I don't think
movie, right?
No, closest is Batman versus Robin.
Lame. They need to do the regular one.
Yeah.
Maybe volume 1 and 2 of those trades or whatever. Anyway.
Yeah. Did you see Doom that came to Gotham?
Oh my god, yeah. I haven't read the comic book.
I haven't either.
I really enjoyed that movie a lot. It's very different than the stuff that I do, because the stuff I do is very grounded and tries to keep it historically accurate and things like that. But I'm a huge sucker for Lovecraftian mythos and all that stuff being thrown in the mix.
I thought
I need to see that.
Yeah, the Mignola connection too made me wonder. I'm like, is this supposed to be the same Batman? Because the costume's kind of similar. But then you watch and you're like, okay, clearly it's not.
Do they talk about horrors that you can't comprehend or whatever the fuck they always talk about with Lovecraftian shit? You can't be described, and then Lovecraft goes on to describe it. That's the Lovecraft joke.
Just talking about it drives you mad, and then you're like, that doesn't sound that bad, I guess. I mean,
I just read this.
I do like a lot some of that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of cool. I forgot that movie came out actually.
Yeah, check it out. It has some cool twists on like the different characters. There are definitely ones where I'm just like, okay, who's this supposed to be? And
Does
then,
Batman
like,
punch? Sorry, I'm sorry, dude. Go ahead.
does Batman punch Cthulhu?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought of that. I blurted it out. Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead, Ben.
I forgot already. So yeah, check out Doom that came to because it is kind of, it almost feels adjacent to Gotham by Gaslight, even though it's not really the same thing. It's not the same Elseworld. It's not the same universe, but it feels similar because of costume, the Mike Mignola connection. I haven't read the comic either. I hadn't even heard of it until like the movie was announced. And I'm just like, what's that supposed to be? And then it's like, oh, it's based on an Elseworld. So I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, check that one out. Thought I would show this. So one of our co-hosts, former co-host Zach, did this piece, which is the Gotham by Gaslight Batman, but it's Michael Keaton in it. So
it's pretty cool.
Cool to share. Yeah. So I've got the card here for that he sent to me. So I thought we would cover a little bit of some of the other takeoffs of Gotham by Gaslight after the movie and the comics. So one of those is in Batman the Brave and the Bold. Trials of the Demon, one of my favorite episodes, of course, from 2009. In this episode, Batman is sent back in time, thanks to Etrigan, to team up with Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson to go up against the guy who will become Gentleman Ghost. Now, there's a little bit of a Jack the Ripper element, but it's also a G-rated cartoon, so it's not that he's cutting up prostitutes in Whitechapel. It's more that he's, getting their souls, of course, which they get returned at the end. But I love this episode. I think the dynamic between Batman and Sherlock is kind of cool because they're kind of rivals throughout this. Sherlock figures out all these things about Batman from just looking at him, and Batman's like, and you're Sherlock Holmes. And Holmes is like, how did you know? He's like, the hat. So great dynamic between the two of them, and a great way to do it's as kid friendly as you could get to try to adapt Gotham by Gaslight in that universe. I think
I will say Brave and the Bold is so wonderfully Silver Age. It's like it's just excellent.
Yeah, it's awesome.
No, I love it. So yeah, check that out if you haven't already. That's the Trials of the Demon episode. And then I'm sure you've heard about this, but there was an unmade Gotham by Gaslight video game. Wasn't published, 2009. Publisher was going to be THQ, and they were unable to get the licensing rights from Warner Brothers. People aren't sure whether it means they couldn't actually get it, or Warner Brothers said, let's not do who wants to do a video game of Victorian Batman? Let's go back to the drawing board on this. So
I honestly think at least have a DLC. God, it would be pretty hefty DLC, but like with its own world and stuff. But I think it would be very popular.
Yeah,
I think so too, because this is a popular, Elseworlds, and you've got, he's going through the foggy, period piece version of Gotham here, which looks really cool. The cape movements are interesting here.
This is before Arkham City, or no? A little bit after, maybe.
This would be this is 2009, so this would be around the same time, I think, as Arkham Asylum, but before Arkham City.
So it's possible, the fog does look awesome. So maybe they were just like, this is almost like a pitch in video game world where they're like, hey, it could look like this. We can need some funding after this, so you're gonna greenlight it or what, Warner Brothers? And then they never did.
They're like, nah. Yeah.
Man,
so yeah, that's a possibility.
This is more exciting. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying the way that he just jumped there in that gameplay footage, he must have hella leg muscles going.
Yeah, I know, right?
Getting jump damage in games is so annoying, and so in a lot of them, like in Arkham and all that, they have it to where you don't get it because as soon as he goes to the ground, he flips up the cape automatically. Because always having to deal with jump damage or whatever in a game is just, it's annoying as fuck as the player. So I can see why they don't add that. But anyway, this is way more exciting than Dude, the Suicide Squad
You were gonna
game,
say-
man.
I knew you were going to say Suicide
God,
Squad.
I don't
Justice
give
League.
I don't give one flying rat's ass about that shit.
Is this the original movie or the second one?
He's talking about the video game.
Oh,
The video game. It's its own thing. It's it's the sequel to like the Arkham games, and it's just
Arkhamverse.
like
Yeah.
I would rather you have a fucking King Shark the game than this bullshit. You just
eat
have
people the whole time.
Captain Boomerang throwing
Nom
a
nom.
fucking boomerang at evil Superman or some shit
Yeah.
in the fucking trailer. I don't know. I'm on record. I don't really like.
hear about,
I don't really like Suicide Squad that much, to be honest with you. Like,
Yeah.
not in any fucking incarnation. I like Peacemaker. That's about it.
Did you hear that they just announced that they're going to be doing a weekly Suicide Squad Insider mini episode?
Just for you, Andrew.
What?
Yeah.
Who-
I think this is Rocksteady.
Please tell me in the
announced
comments who the fuck cares about Suicide Squad. We're doing everything but making Green Lantern shit. I'm not
Yeah,
even the
no
biggest
kidding.
Green Lantern fan, but it's way more of a priority than stupid ass Suicide Squad.
I mean, they
It's the
are making
stupidest
it
shit.
now. The Lantern
Make-
show. They are making
Make the
that, so
fucking
it's not
video
bad.
game off of that shit too. Why so much stupid ass fucking dumbass Suicide Squad shit? It's driving me crazy. I would rather King Shark get on rollerblades and have a fucking crossover with Street Sharks than this bullshit. You guys remember Street Sharks?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. I have
You try to forget?
one. Pretty sure.
Anyway.
I have one. There is one benefit.
Anyway,
It
gameplay
is-
footage looked awesome.
There is one benefit to it, though. It is Kevin Conroy's last performance.
That's true. Yeah.
Oh, it is in that game?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh
Batman.
shit!
Yeah.
Fuck, I didn't know that.
So let's see. Going into another aspect, I know Jake, you've used a little bit of this in your videos, but the Sketch Project commented a year ago as well on one of our videos when I was talking about the actor Bruce Payne, and there was like something I had read that I wasn't sure whether or not was true, that Warner Brothers was really wanting him to be Batman because his name was Bruce Payne, and they just couldn't get over the fact that he was so similar to Bruce Wayne.
Oh, my God.
I don't know how true that is because the article that was referenced was no longer around, but the Sketch Project got our radar on something saying it's funny because in 2016, Payne starred as Jack the Ripper / the Joker, who, I mean, come on, that's probably the easiest person to connect to being Jack the Ripper in the Gotham by Gaslight universe. In a Gotham by
Yeah.
Gaslight fan movie, it's called Ripper, and it's amazing. I checked it out recently before because I hadn't seen it before. I'm
Mhm.
honest. It's really well done. I thought, and it's also one that I think is interesting because unlike it doesn't try to do the comic, it does its own thing and actually puts, instead of being like, oh, Jack the Ripper did all those crimes and then he went to Gotham, it's Batman's in London. He's in Whitechapel when Jack the Ripper's actual killings are happening. Commissioner Gordon in this is not around. Instead, it's Inspector Aberline, who is the actual guy who was investigating the murders historically at the time. And he's also the guy who's the main detective in From Hell, played by Johnny Depp. So they've got kind of the historical elements and, of course, the Joker aspects given to Jack the Ripper on this. You've seen this, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Jake.
Yeah. I actually hadn't seen it until I started my 1889 series, and then everyone was like, you got to watch this. You got to watch this. So I went and watched it. This was like probably over a year ago now, but it's excellent. And it really does lean, more into the historically accurate side of things, which is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And
The lighting is awesome.
Oh yeah. No, it looks really great. And
Yeah.
one thing I wasn't expecting too is that because you would think when watching this a period piece, it's going to be like heavy on the violins and shit, and they decided, nope, we're going John Carpenter on this bitch. It's like a synth score.
Oh, that's
that
cool. That's cool.
Actually seems really cool, which is something that like I really like Michael Giacchino's score. I like his theme for the Batman and stuff, but ever since I heard that the Batmobile in the Batman was inspired by Christine, I kind of wanted like a John Carpenter synth-esque score for the Batmobile stuff. I know it doesn't really fit the the type of feel of it, but since it's John Carpenter was kind of an influence on the horror aspects of in the Batman, it was something that I kind of still associate in my brain. So to kind of see it in this version of Batman in the Ripper fan film was pretty cool.
That would be awesome. Actually, I could see Batman with some synths.
Yeah, I was just thinking, the Christine type score as he's got like the Batmobile started up and he's like standing, he emerges out of it, that type of thing. But yeah, it's been cool because I've been for Halloween I sort of went into a dive of all the different horror movies that were cited as like influential on Batman. So it was Christine, the original Halloween. Jackson Putnam, one of our supporters, cited They Live, which I'm like, that seems like a weird connection. But then I saw it and I could see the different connections that he was talking about. I'm like, okay,
They Live for the Batman?
Yeah, Roddy Piper, Keith David.
Yeah, I've seen that, but I don't know what the connection there would be.
So different like visual connections. There is because he sent me. I gotta like dig back because I talked to Jackson about this a while ago. But he sent me stuff. He sent me like different comparison images in terms of just how certain things were shot. You've got Bruce in sunglasses. You've got the guys in sunglasses, but the way that they shoot Roddy Piper like looking out through the binoculars, similar to Bruce in that. He had to like it a lot of different comparisons. I know right now a lot of these just feel like different visual stuff, but I think for me it was the fact that not only is your first glimpse at the main character when he emerges from a train in like a train station to like a beat that feels very similar to the Giacchino score, but it was also finding out that They Live is based on a story that was going to be remade by Matt Reeves. So he's clearly a fan of that movie.
That's interesting. So more the cinematography side of things.
Yeah, so it's more on definitely more on the cinematography, not so much as on the story, because the story is very different. Obviously you got aliens and shit on it, but there are different little things. I'm just like, I think Jackson's got a point. And then like when I found that article from years ago that Matt Reeves is going to do, not necessarily a remake, but like a readaptation of the source material, I'm like, okay, well, clearly, right? And also John Carpenter's stuff was cited as an influence, so that was just kind of something that I was kind of into for this Halloween, is just kind of see, a lot of these things that, because I didn't really grow up with much John Carpenter when I was growing up. It's really when I was older that I finally got to see Halloween or Christine.
Wait. Did you like Christine?
I did like Christine, yeah.
I haven't seen it.
I think I think as usual the book is better to me, but like I like
You've read it. You had read it before. You had seen the movie.
I read it after the movie, and then I rewatched the movie because the book made me be like, wait a minute, did this happen in the movie? And then I checked it out. I'm like, okay, this didn't happen in the movie, but some of the stuff is like obviously way creepier in the book. But like just the general image of like car come to life, car on fire, all that stuff, that was definitely an influence on the Batmobile. Have you seen Christine, Jake?
I have not. I've heard about it. I was thinking John Carpenter in the vein of The Thing was something that I watched. The Thing literally on Halloween. Started falling asleep and then decided to pick it up the following day. And they took it off the fucking streaming service that I was watching.
Dude, so that happened with me and The Shining.
Really?
They took it off?
Well, I didn't fall asleep. Our internet went out.
Oh.
And then the next day, The Shining was off of Max. So
man.
I found another way to watch it, and we finished it. And yeah.
You had seen it before, but
I'd seen it before.
It'd been a while.
I had been since high school or something. I went through like a big Kubrick phase when I was becoming a young person into film, and I saw a lot of it then, and then I hadn't really rewatched it in a long time. So it was good to see it more as an adult. My wife had never seen The Shining, so that was like the reason we did that.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of want to check out Christine. After seeing The Shining, I was like, I think I got a little bit more into Stephen King again. Throughout the years, I've kind of thought Stephen King's a little overrated, but
I think it depends on the story.
Maybe I'm starting to see why people like him. Yeah.
I think you got to just check out like the great one. So like, like Christine's not in the same ballpark as The Shining, but like it still has some like great shit in there. And then like you got to check out the ones that everyone recommends and maybe avoid the ones that are just exist. Like I checked out The Boogeyman recently and I'm like, this does not seem like Stephen King at all. This is just It just felt like any other monster movie to me.
I'm not a huge I don't like it. I don't like Pet Sematary that much. I mean, they're fine, but like all people just talk these movies up like left and right. And they're look, I'm not pissing a lot of people off right now, but they're just not. A lot of them are not for me. I do like The Shining a lot. But yeah, I don't know. I'm even picky with horror movies.
I mean, I haven't seen. I mean, this is everybody talks about how the book's always better than the movie, but I still haven't seen the movie that's better than the book yet. So I've kind of like I haven't seen a ton of the. I've mainly seen the ones that everyone says like, okay, these are the Stephen King's ones to see. But even after like it, like I went through the huge tome that is it, and I'm like, okay, now things make a lot more sense in the fucking in part 2. Like now the story actually works.
All those sex scenes with the main characters,
well,
like what? That's what I've heard about.
Yeah, well, that's not
like why
that's
did he?
not the part
Why
I was
is on
referring
there?
to. In terms of what stuff, I know it's in there, but
why?
yeah,
Why?
that stuff deserved to be cut. That stuff did not need to be in the movie at all.
Yeah.
Thank God they never put them in the adaptations. But still, like other
Yeah.
aspects. So, but yeah, let us know if you have Stephen King recommendations in the comments section.
I'll definitely be checking out Christine.
Yeah. So there is an upcoming sequel that they announced this year called Gotham by Gaslight: The Kryptonian Age. It's going to be a huge expansion of it too, because it's not just one issue. Because like Gotham by Gaslight's a one shot, so is Master of the Future. This is 12 issues, so this is going to be the biggest expansion of that universe.
Wow.
Comes from Andy Diggle and Leandro Fernandez, and it's going to be Batman forming the Justice League and uncovering the secret history between Earth and Krypton.
Weird.
Which is obvious,
So it's going to
given
be
the title.
1880s with Krypton.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
okay.
I'm not really sure how that's going to work because I don't necessarily associate that era with aliens and stuff in a lot of sci-fi.
They've
things,
always been here, bro. Don't even worry
I know.
about it.
Still,
Jules
to see how this
Verne and
goes.
shit. I don't know. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Teddy
that's close to what I
Roosevelt
could think.
is actually a Kryptonian.
Who's the Kryptonian?
Teddy Roosevelt.
Gordon just like rips open his shirt halfway through it.
Abe Lincoln had an alien in his hat.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll find out.
Actually, it was 1880s. I don't think Abe Lincoln was around. I don't think he made it that far.
Yeah.
If memory serves me correctly.
So that's what we got in terms of all the different parts of the Gotham by Gaslight. Are there things? I guess what are some of your favorite aspects to this universe, Jake? Just the historical connections, or like what brings you to this? Like what's the big interest for you?
Yeah, so I think what drew me initially to Gotham by Gaslight was, I'd grown up with Batman the Animated Series. I actually didn't get into comics until I was in high school, but a lot of those television shows that were coming out, including the 2007 animated show The Batman, that kind of stuff was like really cool. And then I started to see things on the internet of this really cool looking Batman that had like a collar, had the Inverness cape with like the shoulder thing covered. And I was like, what the fuck is this? So I start looking into it. I find Gotham by Gaslight, the comic, read it, and was instantly in love. Because kind of similarly to what you were saying, I've been like reading Sherlock Holmes and watching like the really old like black and white serials for Sherlock Holmes as well. Trying to remember what else. Sorry, my ADHD had something, and then I lost it.
Have you seen the Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper movies? There's
I have
two of them.
not.
There's
Actually,
two different ones.
surprisingly, yeah.
So we might dive. We have like an extension with a Patreon in terms of like deeper dive stuff, and I'm going to go a little bit more into the different connections between the two. But there was, if it's still on Tubi, check out A Study in Terror, because that one they took a couple things from that and put it in the Gotham by Gaslight movie, because I think the writer cited that movie as an influence, and then I saw it and I'm like, okay, I can kind of see different parts. And it was released in 1965 in England, but then when they were trying to advertise it in America, they're like, how do we make Sherlock Holmes like kind of like appeal to American audiences? So on the poster they put, here comes the original Caped Crusader.
Oh
That's
wow.
cool.
He's got the Inverness cape, and the John Neville who played him. So yeah, the actor was John Neville, who ended up becoming the Baron Munchausen, as well as he's the well manicured man in the X-Files. But he kind of has he kind of looks like if Adam West was British, he'd look like John Neville in this movie.
Gotcha.
So there's that kind
That's
of
cool.
aspect to it. So there's kind of a weird Batman connection to that one specifically, but
Yeah.
check that one out.
Definitely. Yeah, but the just the whole aspect of because you hear about Jack the Ripper in like, I don't know, history class or wherever, and just reading through this whole thing, I was like, oh my goodness, this is I think that's probably what stood out to a lot of people, was just the clashing of these two different categories into this new thing, and people just loved it. I know I did. But yeah, I was also, along with everyone else, just flipping out when I saw this announcement.
I need to look into when this is going to be released too, but it
I
is.
have no idea.
There's a lot of pressure, I feel like, on this, because this will be the first one outside of the movie that's not written by Brian Augustyn, and there's 12 issues, and it's like a beloved Elseworlds, and they're expanding it. So if they screw it up, like, fans are just not going to forgive it. It's going to be like The Dark Knight Strikes Again or All-Star Batman with Frank Miller. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Fingers crossed that's actually good, but I'm hopeful for it. We'll see what happens, and if not, then we still at least have the originals.
Right.
We'll see a release date on it.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Let's go to that AOL.com site that Holmes and see.
Why don't you ask Jeeves real quick? Let's see what he says.
Amazing. I think at one point there was like somebody tried to set up like an Ask Jeeves, but it was Alfred. Tried to do like an Alfred search engine.
That'd be awesome.
I definitely tried to use that a couple times, but I think
You
it
could
shut
set
down.
You could set that up with a Chat GPT like things now and have it talk like Alfred.
Yeah. It just says 2024 from what I can see here. At least according to AOL. And Ask Jeeves.
Did you really look it on AOL?
I looked at the AOL article that Halsey sent us. Yes.
AOL net find. Fucking AOL too. He couldn't get over the fact AOL still exists. Just the fact
They employed somebody to write about Batman comics.
That's so funny, man. Whenever you watch those fucking like Superman animated series episodes, and I think Batman Beyond, at the end of the credits it says AOL keyword. Remember that shit? Like it's still there in the credits. Like look up your AOL keyword and like you could find the page for it there. Like I was like, oh my god, dude, this shit's so long ago, man.
Gotta look back on Max to see what that looked like again, but I remember that.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. I think BTAS was too early even for AOL actually, but
Batman Beyond for sure was probably when they were doing that.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so the Gotham by Gaslight universe. Let us know your theories on Jack the Ripper, your Stephen King recommendations, all the stuff that we.
I'm sorry, Stephen King fans. It's just a lot of it's not for me. I don't know what it is. Okay.
All right.
Is that it?
I think that's it. So that is superhero stuff you should know.
Coming soon from Newverse Creative.
Riddle me this, Fred! What is everything to someone and nothing to everyone else? Your mind.
In an uncertain world, in a chaotic time, justice wears a mask.
Batman does not kill? What if those slain during his fight with Jack Napier, the Joker?
Love is a game.
Let's just say I could write a heck of a paper on why a grown man dresses up like a flying rodent.
Bats aren't rodents, Dr. Meridian.
Power is a machine.
Question marks, Mr. Wayne? My work raises too many question marks! Here's one for you. Why hasn't anybody put you in your place?
and revenge is a trap.
The Bats must die.
Courage now.
Let's save your bat butt back there. I think a little appreciation is in order.
Truth always.
Who's the boy wonder, Batman?
Experience the original Batman forever. Finally performed in the style of the Burtonverse.
I see without seeing. To me, darkness is as clear as daylight. What am I?
Batman 3, based on the screenplay by Lee and Janet Scott Batchelor with Akiva Goldsman. Adapted by Ben Wan from Superhero Stuff You Should Know.
My parents were murdered in front of me. I was just a kid. I can't remember exactly what happened. But now there's a new element. A red leather book.
Coming soon.
So, big thanks to our research assistant Dan for gathering the visuals for this, including that Gotham by Gaslight video game demo. That was cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
So let's go into some of the comments that we got. The Mike Bartz commented on our episode, or our mini episode, talking about how the Case of the Chemical Syndicate, Detective Comics number 27, basically was a remake of the Shadow story, Partners of Peril. Mike Bartz says, I read somewhere that Case of the Chemical Syndicate wasn't initially meant to be published. Rather, it was a quote-unquote sample of what a Batman story would look like. The publishers, however, liked it and put it into Detective Comics number 27, thus making it the first official Batman story.
I like it.
Let's do it.
We're doing it right now. It's number 27. Here's your 2 cents, literal 2 cents that'll make you live a day in 1938 or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, Bert's let us know the source on that, because I'd be very interested to see.
It's okay. You know, plagiarism laws didn't exist back then.
They might not have. Well,
it's also altered enough that you couldn't really do much. Like I've read both stories, and it's one where like they cut a ton of the subplots from the original story, and like some things like it clearly is taken from it, but they didn't like outright take the same names or the same dialogue at times. So like there's enough leeway that
just the major beats of
every
single beat of it is the same.
Yeah, but I don't know if they could have really done that at the time, because it's not like literal words were taken. But anyway,
yeah, it's fine.
The Shadow 3076, the Shadow himself commented, but not to talk about the Shadow. He actually commented on our Batman, which Batman was the best strategist. So he said, I always saw Pattinson's Batman going to the front door of the Iceberg Lounge as a learning experience. Oh, yeah. So we had a debate about this, Jake, in terms of, the part where Batman is outside of the Iceberg Lounge, knocks on the door, says, you know who I am, and walks in through the front door. So anyway, the Shadow says, note how the second time the front door is open, the guy doesn't see him sneak in and the door locks behind him. There's lots of growing and learning that happens in this take on Batman. So I agree to that. With that to an extent. So I think so the debate, if you haven't heard about this debate, Jake, because other people have brought this up, is that I think not just Andrew but others didn't like Batman's tactic of going in through the front door, because everybody's sort of used to stealth Batman kind of just showing up in the room,
right? Yeah,
at times and stuff. How do you feel about that?
I think that's kind of how I took it too, was what the Shadow is saying in his comment was it's supposed to be like kind of cringy when he goes that first time, because it's like he's making a lot of presumptions about his reputation thus far, and you can see from the guy's reaction at the door that he's like, the fuck are you? But I can't remember if it was that first time. I can't remember. Does he break in afterwards when they don't let him in?
Yeah, the later on when Selina's going to kill Falcone, he knocks on the door.
Okay.
The guy comes out. He doesn't see anybody, and then he sneaks in.
Gotcha. Yeah. It seemed like a relatively natural progression, but it did make me cringe when I saw that scene when he came the first time, because it was like, oh, dude, no. They're not gonna let you in.
Yeah, I think for me, it was more of just like, he's been doing this for 2 years. We saw everybody be scared of him in the opening, so it felt a little jarring that now we've got guys who don't give a fuck when they see it. Like, I would have liked it if like they actually were scared when he came in. Because to me, between the two, like to me, it's more of like, I want to see the Batman persona being frightening to the criminals, and I find that more important than the occasional stealth stuff. Not because I don't think stealth is important, but like Batman's ninja or stealth tactics is something that is relatively new in the history of Batman from last few decades, but him wanting to strike fear in criminals has been there since the first year. So I'm like, in terms of priorities, I'm like, I'm fine with him going in, as long as they show that they're scared. And also because I've seen other Batman media where he also just walks in and stuff. Yeah. Usually he walks in with everybody being like, oh, fuck, not people just being like, who the fuck are you? And not wanting to let him in. So
Batman's Superman adventure from the animated universe, the scene where he breaks into the nightclub in that animated movie, that's what it reminded me a lot when I watched the Batman, when he breaks in and then finds the Penguin and everything.
Yeah,
a lot of similarities between those two as well.
Yeah, and there's also even like, I think last year I read one where like it's like the 80s and he's walking in with like Robin and stuff and like punching the bouncer. So it's like, it's still something that he's done over time. I can't say that he's never done anything like that. I think it's just to me it was the execution of the guys who aren't scared of him, but then also it's kind of like, well, they're going to, like, the more powerful they are, maybe they aren't supposed to be scared of him. So it kind of just goes to show that there's deliberate evolution, like the Shadow is saying here about his protege, of course. And then this last one I'm throwing in here, big thanks to the guys who congratulated in terms of Ian and Daniel, but this is an announcement. I will be at LA Comic-Con on the panel with our the head of our podcast network, Geekscape, has a panel, Geekscape Live, every year at LA Comic-Con. And I will be joining Jonathan London up there, along with a bunch of his other guests who will be there. And we'll be recapping the weekend and talking about our podcast and talking about the Comic-Con. So excited to be there. Let us know if you're going to be there too, if you're going to be at LA Comic-Con. I know we got a lot of people in California as well in the fan base. So keep us posted. We'll see you there.
I should probably address why I'm not going to be there. So
yeah, go ahead.
It's the worst timing of all motherfucking time. I really wanted to be on my first panel ever, but so I've been studying Japanese for about 20 goddamn years. There's something called the Japanese Language Proficiency Test, aka the JLPT. I have failed it 4 times over the years, so I'm taking it a 5th time that weekend in Seattle because LA filled up like in 2 seconds. A lot of Japanese learners in LA. Maddie from the old podcast lives in Seattle, so it was like $150 extra ticket, like round trip from LA. So it was like not a whole lot extra. Got a free couch to stay on probably, and so I'll be in Seattle that weekend I'm flying to take a test. It's just a weird thing. And then this happened to be the same. I'm taking a test. I'll be done with the test by the time this panel starts, I think. But I can't fly back in.
Jesus.
Yeah. The test is on Sunday.
Yeah.
The test is on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So it sucks, man. But it's one of those things where if I pass, it's like passing the bar. This is like the bar of Japanese language. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can put it on my resume and shit. So, and it's only offered once a year in America. I think twice a year in Japan, but I don't want to fly and be jet lagged taking it in the summer in Japan. I'd rather just Seattle and LA on the same time zone. So it's just like, it makes more sense to do it this way, but
yeah, for sure.
There was no.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, real quick tangent. Like I've taken the test before. Japan Foundation, man, you should have emailed me and said, "Hey, start registration, get registered. You know, you've taken it before, take it again. You know, that kind of thing." Never got that email. I have a friend in my Japanese group says, "Hey, you signed up for the JLPT?" I was like, "Oh, fuck!" I go on, already sold out. Like, except other cities. Yeah, LA sold out real quick. Anyway, that's why I'm not going to be there, and I'm a little miffed that I can't make it. I'd love to be there.
I'm sorry, man, but we'll get them next year because we could even have our own panel, not be part of.
Yes,
panel,
I
not
know.
just
I
part
would
of their
love
panel, but do our own one. So
I would love that. Yeah.
So and then we can fly Jake over, and he'll be part of that panel too. The entire conglomerate of our past guests.
What state are you in? Can I ask what state?
I am currently in Ohio. I
Ohio.
will be in LA this coming March, I believe. But yeah.
Okay.
We'll book a ticket for that December, so you can be part of the panel with Andrew and me.
We'll talk after the air. We'll talk after recording. All right. Onward to the next thing.
Nice. So before we go into the Patreon shoutouts, I thought I would hand Jake the mic to talk about plugging the BatFeed.
Yeah. So again, thank you guys so much for having me on. This is fun to just kind of shoot the shit and talk about things, all things Batman and superhero. So my channel, the BatFeed, like I said before, I started it back in 2020, and it really took off in the last few years or so. We do a lot of documentary-style videos, mainly taking place in the Victorian era, also in the 1920s. But we also have this new series that we just started called the Arkham Tapes, which is a Batman analog horror-style series. And it really takes a look at what if there was a more otherworldly side to Batman's rogues gallery, and using like that VHS style found footage type stuff. It's been a lot of fun to piece together, and there's plenty more to come. We have one full season of that. It's only like 6 or 7 episodes, but we have plenty more to come. So feel free to check it out. Check us out on YouTube. It's just the BatFeed. And we're on pretty much every other form of social media. So feel free to give us a follow or a subscribe on any of those.
You on Threads?
I am. Honest to God, I still don't know how that thing fucking works.
It's just Twitter. They're trying to be Twitter.
Yeah,
with more pictures.
I don't think it uses hashtags though.
Yeah, it's Twitter, but without all the other stuff that people like on Twitter.
Everyone thought there was going to be a mass exodus from X, and it didn't happen. Like, everyone's still there, like, despite whatever political leanings you have. So, anyway.
But yeah, awesome. So, let's see. Moving on over into the Patreon shoutouts. Let me pull up the slide, and here we go.
Oh, man. Let's see the slide there. We've had a few people join the last month or two. Oh, it's coming up slowly. All right, everybody. Thanks to everybody on here, but some of our more recent people. Let's go with Put Your Guns On. Michael C. and Leom O is back in the saddle again. Thanks for coming back on. And thanks, everybody. Other supporters, Spark again. We mentioned you and everybody else. Thank you, everybody up here on the board. And we've told you about our friends here, and now we would like you to do us a favor.
We'd like you to tell all your friends about us
and solve mysteries.
Elementary.